My new daughter and my ex-son! The last few months have been really rough. My wife, Catherine, was having an affair with a co-worker, and it seemed like everyone in the world knew about it, but no one had the courage to say anything. I was just as guilty as everyone else. For some strange reason, I hoped it would just end and everything would go back to normal. Of course, that was a fantasy, because you can't go back to the way things were. We had been married for 19 years and had 3 children. Rob was 18 and the oldest. Catherine was pregnant when we married. A year later, we had Donna, and the next year, Darcy came along and I had a vasectomy. They were good kids, and until recently, we had no problems with them. Needless to say, the problem with the kids was caused by their mother's sloppy activities. Catherine had worked in the claims department of a large insurance company for the past 3 years. When she started working overtime, several nights a week, the kids and I quickly noticed it. She got a new haircut and went to the gym. Her lingerie drawer got a little sexier, but I never enjoyed it. Donna and Darcy had seen her having lunch with her department head at an upscale restaurant, but she never mentioned it. In desperation, I decided to follow her like a lovesick puppy. Her trips to motels with her lover were frequent and brazen. Although I saw no need to do so, I still documented the times and dates of several of their encounters. As the affair dragged on, the family began to disintegrate. All of this was happening without any conversation. The children were angry at the mother for cheating. The kids were mad at me for not confronting their mother and trying to keep my cool. I was too dumb to realize the wait was hopeless. The family only gathered for dinner. Even then, it was an ordeal. There was little or no conversation, and when each of the children finished eating, they would quietly disappear, usually leaving the house before bedtime. John, I'm not going to put up with this attitude from the kids for much longer. If you don't do something to fix it, I will. I'll take care of it. You've been saying that for a month. I don't know what's gotten into them. Why are they acting like little kids all of a sudden? Oh, that's not the problem. The problem was how to work it out. I think we can do it now. Are you going to let me in on this, or is it some big dark secret? No secret. I'm moving in with my parents tomorrow. Catherine wasn't happy about the news. She stopped clearing the table and sat back down with a heavy, determined slap. What? What are you talking about, John? You can't commute from Freckville, and I can't take care of this place and the kids on my own. How does that solve anything? Actually, Catherine, you won't have to worry about the kids. They're coming with me. I hadn't expected to see the frowned eyebrows and stiff lower lip, but it was actually quite believable. Placing her elbows on the table, my loving wife leaned forward and looked me in the eye. There's no way in hell you're leaving this house with my children. What makes you think you can get away with such foolishness? That's what we decided. Catherine sighed irritably, stood up and began to clear the table again. She mumbled something to herself, but I couldn't make it out. After tossing the last china into the sink, she turned around. Why? Why is this happening? I think the reason is because they're tired of being embarrassed. What are you talking about? It's mostly about your affair with Brian Masterson. You flaunt your infidelity to the point where the whole family knows about it. You've shown no respect for your children or me. What? Are you going to deny it? Are you telling me you don't spend several days a week having sex in different motels? Are you saying I don't understand that? I decided I didn't want to continue this conversation. There were a lot of things to throw in her face, but I didn't have the guts. I pushed back my chair and left the room. Catherine was standing at the sink with her hand on her hip. I noticed a defiant expression on her face, as if she was pleased that I had mentioned her infidelity. I got the feeling she'd been teasing me all along, so she'd have an excuse to stop carrying around guilt. A lecture was expected, which I had no intention of listening to tonight. I had no desire to hear that I had forced her to seek solace elsewhere, because I was a mediocre husband and a bad lover. Sure, I could accuse her of being a cheater, but in the end it would still be my fault. I knew Catherine, and I knew she had pre-planned everything she was going to say. My best game was to not play at all. What about your job? I'm leaving. I heard her shout my name as I walked out the door. I had no idea where the kids were. All of their clothes and personal belongings were loaded into Rob's Subaru Outback. The van had over 100,000 miles on it, but I figured it had another 100,000 miles left in it. All my clothes and personal papers were in the back seat of the SUV. Back at home, Catherine hadn't noticed any of this. We all agreed that what we couldn't take away on the first trip, we could come back for later. I was sure Catherine was looking around the house when I left. There was no turning back at this point. I decided I had to call Donna. Donna always kept to herself. Rob was the oldest and the man, but he had no problem letting Donna call the shots. Donna, it's Dad. Are you still home? No. I'm on my way to the motel right now. I think it's best if you guys find some place to stay. Can you get in touch with Rob? No problem. Darcy and I will stay with Betsy Cooper. I don't know what Rob's up to, but I think I can get in touch with him. Okay. Meet me tomorrow morning at 6 a.m. at the Waffle House on Lancaster Pike. We can go to Frackville from there. Dad, was Mom mad? I think so. I'll tell you about it tomorrow. Oh, after you call Rob, maybe it's best to turn your phone off. Checking into the Desca Motel, I turned off my cell phone. I had just finished showering when there was a knock on the door. I opened, expecting to see a furious Catherine, but instead I saw a smiling Rob. There weren't many motels in town. By 7 o'clock the next morning, we were on our way to the coal regions. Catherine and I never bothered to discuss my work situation. It didn't matter because I was now unemployed. The most normal thing to do under these circumstances was to discreetly hide as much cash as possible. If I filed for divorce, I would have to go through the asset declaration process and come up with an equitable distribution. No one likes to have their credit go belly up, but under the circumstances, it seemed like a good idea. If I don't work, the kids can qualify for lots of grants and other benefits when it comes time to go to college. I want to make sure they get everything they need, but that may not work out. Living with my parents would also cover a lot of other normal expenses. I was pretty sure Catherine wouldn't wait long before filing divorce papers. I would probably agree to whatever she demanded just to get rid of this marriage. There wasn't much she could get since I didn't have a job and the kids wouldn't go with her even if they were told to. All I could do now was sit and wait. It was great to be back in my hometown. The last time I lived there was before I left for college. After graduation, the closest place I could get, even a halfway decent job, was in Reading. Catherine was originally from Baltimore, so she didn't mind being only a few hours away from home. We got married before my last semester at the University of Pennsylvania. Catherine never finished because of her pregnancy. She never had a desire to study. I think she came to get away from her parents and find a husband. Anyway, I won the marriage lottery. My prize was 3 wonderful children and a fool as a wife. Sure, I had regrets, but I'm not one to dwell on the past. I didn't realize my past would catch up with me so quickly. Since I had a lot of old friends in the neighborhood, getting a black job wasn't that hard. I stashed away as much money as I could to keep it out of Catherine's hands. She's not going to get anything unless she starts getting divorced. All 3 of the boys are gone, too. Under the circumstances, I guess they felt obligated. I didn't leave Catherine because the kids wanted me to, but they seemed to feel the same way. Mom and Dad were reluctant to take money from us. I don't think they needed to. They didn't want me to feel like a slacker. Catherine called 2 weeks later and asked if I was going to pay the mortgage. I replied that I wasn't. Another 2 weeks later, she called me and told me that her car insurance needed to be renewed. I gave her the same answer. Catherine tried to have a conversation related to the cheating. She tried to be apologetic and sincere, but she failed. I listened patiently as she explained how her friendship with Masterson had started and developed into a fulfilling relationship. She assured me that he was just a physical attraction and nothing more. After a few minutes, she realized how ridiculous it all sounded and stopped talking halfway through. I didn't answer. I'm sorry, John. I don't have a good excuse for what I did. I'm truly sorry. She stopped calling after that. I guess my wife finally realized that the marriage couldn't be saved and filed for divorce. She had to pay the mortgage and the car payments, as well as all the utilities. Of course, I was obligated to pay those bills, but I felt that since thousands of other terminally battered fathers avoided such things, I could too. It was worth the risk. I signed the papers and power of attorney to sell the house as soon as I received them. Now it was only a matter of time. Catherine asked for nothing more than the house. She wouldn't get much after closing costs and commission. Rob was getting all his college papers together. Unfortunately, Rob had other pressing problems. My past was coming back to haunt me, and Rob found himself in the middle of the problems. Dad, I have a little problem. I suppose you think I can help you? I met a girl a few weeks ago, and I really like her. At least the conversation started on a high note. Rob had dated a few girls in high school, but never showed any serious interest in them. It was nice to hear him admit that he could be in a potentially long-term relationship. I'm sure it's not about pollination techniques. No, but I got an unexpected kick out of it. I met her mother for the first time, and as soon as I introduced myself, she got upset. When I left, she told Shannon she never wanted to see me again. She had never done that with any of Shannon's previous boyfriends. Her mother gave her no explanation. I think Shannon was a little pissed at her mom because she finally agreed to back off, but only if you talk to her. Let me get this straight. This girl's mom will let you date, but only if she talks to me first. That's the thing. Shannon said it's never happened before. I think I'll find the time. You set it up and let me know where and when. Rob left the room with a wide smile, and I sat there wondering why this woman had to meet with me before approving of their relationship. In the evening, Rob drove us to Shannon's house. It was an old house that stood just off the main street. The house was badly in need of a paint job, and the slate sidewalk should have been leveled long ago. Shannon was waiting at the front door and opened it anxiously as we approached. Hi, I'm Shannon. She was cheerful and sweet. I could see why Rob was so attracted to her. We really appreciate this, Mr. Rischel. I'm sorry to have to invite you like this, but my mom insisted. I hope you don't mind. Don't worry about it. I'm sure we can get this all sorted out in no time. Mom, Mr. Rischel is here. My heart sank when my old high school college sweetheart, Abigail Connor, entered the room. Hi, John. Hi, Abby. The words flew off my lips automatically. There was an awkward silence in the room, which Rob quickly broke. Do you guys know each other? She kept her eyes on me. Your dad and I went to school together. Shannon seemed excited about the new situation. Well, that should make things easier, right? I have a fresh pot of coffee ready. I think we'll be more comfortable in the kitchen. I obediently followed her to the back of the house. When I sat down, she turned to the children. You two had better wait in the living room for a while. Turn on the TV and don't mess around. I'll call you in a few minutes. Abby went to get coffee, and I began to reminisce. We were in the fall semester of our senior year at Penn State. Abby and I had gotten into a fight because I didn't want to go home for Thanksgiving. She left without me. While she was gone, I partied, got drunk, and was arrested for disorderly conduct. My parents weren't happy, and Abby refused to talk to me when she came back. She was still mad at me when the semester ended and she went home alone for Christmas. My parents weren't happy with me, so I stayed on campus for the vacations. That's when the bad news came. It was between Christmas and New Year's Eve when Catherine approached me at the student union. According to her, we had had sex during one of my binges in the student residence, and now she was pregnant. I didn't want to aggravate the situation with my parents. Without giving it too much thought, we drove to Gretna Green that same day and got married. I didn't tell my parents until the spring after graduation. Abby found out about the marriage when she went back to school after a few years away and immediately dropped out. I don't know if she ever finished. You're daydreaming for real. Her words woke me up when a mug appeared in front of me. She was 20 years older than the last time I saw her, and still beautiful. My brain worked feverishly, comparing. I was so sorry I wasn't ready for this. You'll have to let my brain come around before I'm worth anything. Abby was always easy to talk to, and I always felt comfortable with her. I don't even remember what we argued about before we split up. It was at that moment that I realized I didn't even know her last name. Rob had never mentioned Shannon's last name. It was time to melt the ice. I tried to be calm and open at the same time. Is there a Mr. Abby here, or are we just going to have this discussion, just the two of us? She didn't smile at my pathetic attempt at a joke. That's exactly why I invited you here. I'm not looking for anything, but I hope we can avoid problems. What do you mean you're not looking for anything? John, I've never been married. I tried dating a few guys, but it didn't work out. Most of them weren't interested in an unmarried mom and were just looking for easy sex with no strings attached. I still don't get it. John, you're Shannon's dad. There, I said it. I was hoping I could tell you in a more sophisticated way, but sometimes things don't go the way we plan. Of course, I had no idea. Can I get some more coffee? That's it? That's all you have to say? I think I understand why you told them they couldn't see each other anymore. Unfortunately, I think it was too late. By the time I found out Rob was your son, they'd already formed a relationship. Oh my God! You're saying my son and my daughter are having sex? I'm pretty sure. I don't think siblings should love each other physically. The fresh coffee was too hot to drink. I blew on the cup and my daughter's mother stared at me, expecting some words of wisdom that I didn't have. Abby, I don't think we have a choice, do we? We have to tell them and hope it's not too late. There was a sudden change of mood at the table. I'm sorry, John. I should have told you, but I just couldn't bring myself to do it. You'd just gotten married and I didn't want to ruin your life. So you decided to ruin your own life instead? I have a beautiful, smart daughter. I didn't ruin my life, I just needed to make some adjustments. I finished my coffee and leaned back in my chair. By the way, John, I don't mean to be nosy, but where's Catherine? I'm afraid we've drifted apart. I always thought that was a good word, but I never thought I'd get a chance to use it. Oh, I'm sorry I asked. For a few moments, we sat in silence. John, are you going to tell them yourself, or should I do it? You go ahead and I'll support you as best I can. Not a minute later, Shannon and Rob were already sitting with us at the kitchen table. Abby handed Shannon a folded piece of paper. Oh my God! Shannon immediately caught Rob's attention, and she hadn't even unfolded the piece of paper yet. What's going on? It's a mysterious birth certificate that I wasn't supposed to see until I was 21. Rob looked puzzled. What? So unusual about a birth certificate? Shannon didn't answer. She unfolded the form and stared at it with her mouth open. There had to be a mistake here. Mom, tell me it's not true. Abby didn't answer her daughter. She stared at the floor. Rob tried to look at the sheet, but Shannon hid it. Mom, please, tell me it's not true. There was still no answer. Disgusted, Shannon threw the birth certificate across the table and ran out of the room crying. Daddy, what is going on? I'm so sorry, Rob. It was hard for us to tell you this, but you should have known. Know what? Shannon's your sister. There was silence in the kitchen. In the distance, somewhere in the house, we could hear Shannon crying. Rob slowly got up and walked out of the room. I was sure he had a million questions, but he wasn't looking for answers right now. He had more important things to do. After a few moments, the sobbing became less intense. Abby, do you happen to have a beer? Abby and I were just finishing our second mug of beer when Rob showed up. Can we go home now, Dad? 2 days later, Rob decided to talk to me again. The house was gloomy and I was relieved that something was going to be resolved. I want to have a DNA test done. I have the money to pay for it, and I won't take no for an answer. Where do we do it? There's a lab in Allentown. $200 for each test. I want to test Shannon, you and me. Well, if we're going to go to all this trouble, we should test the girls. I'll pay for it. Do we have to go there, or can they mail us the test material? Either way, but I'd rather go there. That's fine. You set it up, and we'll make a whole day of it. I'll even swing by the Olive Garden for dinner. That same day, I called the Continental Fire and Flood Authority. I spoke to the head of the company's legal department. He wasn't really interested in my marital status and was quick to tell me so. However, he was interested in how Brian Masterson was paying for the motel rooms he was using. When I mentioned that Masterson was Catherine's boss and that I wanted more information about the company's policy on adultery, he quickly ended the conversation. A few days later, Catherine called. For some strange reason, she had lost her job and was now struggling to pay her bills. She seemed upset when I told her that I couldn't find a job and that I was taking care of my parents. She wanted me to give her enough money so she could move back to Baltimore. She put the house on the market, but things weren't going well. She was hoping to get out of Pennsylvania before her car was repossessed. She tried again to explain her connection to Masterson, but quickly abandoned the attempt when I wouldn't respond. Although she didn't mention it, I knew that Brian Masterson had been fired as well. She never realized what had happened. 2 days later, everything changed. I walked into the house and found Rob and Shannon on the couch, grinning like two Cheshire cats. They just sat there with silly grins on their faces. "Okay. What's the matter? Why the long faces?" It was a feeble attempt at a joke. They were laughing anyway. "Do you want the good news or the not-so-good news? Aren't you mistaken?" "I don't think so. Well, maybe a little bad news, but all in all, it's pretty good." "Stop mocking me. Donna and Darcy are your daughters. The DNA matched. I assume they're happy about that?" "They don't know yet." "What else?" "Shannon is your daughter, another almost perfect match." "I'm a little confused. Where does the good part of all this come from?" "Don't worry now. But I'm not your son." I didn't expect that. I loved Rob with all my heart and raised him like any good father would. Now he's telling me I'm not his father. "I need another beer." The smiles disappeared from Rob and Shannon's faces. Everything was suddenly a little more serious and a little less carefree. I came back with a new bottle and plopped into the chair. "Dad, this doesn't change anything between us. You're my father no matter what the DNA says. I don't know who the donor was, but you will always be my father." I'm halfway through a new bottle. I don't know whether to be happy or sad. I don't know if this is good news or bad news. I don't know what to do. I just don't know what to do. My new daughter and my ex-son just sat on the couch saying nothing. "Have you told your mom yet, Shannon?" No. "Yeah. Why don't you guys run out and break the news to her? I got a lot of things to think about." Mom and Dad were in the kitchen trying to avoid the whole situation. They were always very delicate. "John, if there's anything we can do, please let us know. We won't give advice, but are more than willing to help in any other way we can. Dad has always been there for me. I wish I could be the same for Rob." Abby found me a few hours later at the Circle Bar. I don't know how she knew I was there, and I don't remember getting drunk. Looking back, I don't know why I got drunk. It wasn't that bad. It was just all mixed up. It had been 10 years since I last overdid it with alcohol, and I didn't have a good excuse for it. I woke up on the couch at Abby's house. One way or another, she'd brought me there. I was still dressed, but I had taken my shoes off. I smelled fresh coffee, but the bathroom was more important. She was waiting at the kitchen table when I returned from the bathroom. The bathrooms in these old houses were always on the second floor, so I was forced to attack the stairs to use it. I won that battle, albeit with difficulty. Abby offered me nothing but coffee, which was fine under the circumstances. "I really blew it. I don't know who to apologize to first." "Looks like you weren't the only one who had sex with Catherine that weekend. You just drew the short straw." "I don't even remember having sex with her. It was just something she said. I had no alibi, no way to prove I didn't sleep with her. I took the easy way out like an asshole. I must be the biggest asshole in the world." There was no response from the other end of the table. Finally, she spoke up. "Hey, don't look at me. I totally agree with your self-image." "I don't know what to do." I thought the divorce had already started. It is, but I feel like I should be doing something else. I think you should take a shower and shave now. I've been in a really bad way and I feel bad. Can you give me a ride home? For the next few days, Rob was in high spirits. The girls seemed happy with the genetic analysis, but couldn't get over their mother. My mom and dad were as supportive as they could be without delving where they shouldn't. It was appreciated. Rob decided he needed to take action. Dad, I want to know. What do you mean? She has to know, Dad. Mom needs to know who my real father is. It was in the student dormitory, right? That means Mom got pregnant by one of your brothers and you took the fall. Isn't there some way to get her to give you the names? Wow, chuckles. You're assuming there was more than one. You don't seem to think too highly of your mother. Not after what she did to you then and what she's doing to you now. She was a slob and she still is. What? You've been with her all these years? I ignored the last question. I have an idea. I don't know if it will work, but it's worth a try. That same day, I called my loving wife. I tried to mentally construct what I wanted to say, but I was afraid I'd end up confused and mess it up. John, what can I do for you? I wasn't expecting a call. From the tone of her voice, I was afraid that she would see it as an attempt at reconciliation. I'd have to be very careful not to mislead her. I was thinking about our last conversation. You mentioned something about wanting to move in with your sister. Is that what you still want? Yes. Have you thought of a way to help me? I'd really appreciate it. I can give you $2,000 to help, but I need a couple things in return. Okay, that would really help. What do you need? I guess you don't know that I had all the kids' DNA analyzed. It came out of her muffled outburst that she had no idea about the tests. I'm so sorry, John. I had hoped it would never come out. Things seemed to be going so well between you and Rob. I thought it was interesting that she mentioned Rob, but not Darcy or Donna. What about the girls? I don't know what you're talking about, John. What about the girls? Weren't you worried about their DNA tests? No! Why would I be? Her answer seemed sincere, and I decided not to pursue the subject any further. I'd like to know the name or names of who Rob's father is. Tell me, and you get $2,000. The pause on the other end of the wire was much longer than I expected. Catherine, whoever this guy is, he doesn't think highly enough of you to make an honest woman out of you. What makes you think he needs to be protected? He used you and dumped you on me. I'm the one who needs taking care of, not him. Okay. There were 3 of them. I don't know which one's the father. Names? Kyle Simmons, Ray Thorenson, and Philip Berger. I knew them all. 3 spoiled rich kids who felt they could get away with anything. They were all fraternity brothers who turned out to be less than loyal. Thank you, Catherine. I appreciate it. What else do you need, John? If you're not going to stay in the house and you can't sell it, can I have it? Oh, God, yes. I can't sell it, and more than anything, I'd like to give it to you. Even if I find a buyer, I won't get enough out of the deal to pay the real estate commission. You'll have it as soon as I move out. I'll sign the papers. John, I have a small favor to ask of you, too. What is it, Catherine? Is there any way you can arrange for the kids and I to see each other? It's not a big deal, but I'm their mother nonetheless, and I'd really like to see them once in a while. I'm sure I can arrange something. 2 days later, Catherine got her $2,000 and I got the title to the house and the mortgage. Rob found out from me about possible donors. The DNA information was a little more complicated, but not impossible. Ray Thorenson was a high school teacher in Altoona. All state employees were required to have their DNA on file. These files were not available to the general public, but Rob had no trouble figuring out how to get what he needed. Ray Thorenson was not Rob's father. Philip Berger was a guest of the Ohio prison system. Phil seemed to like young girls who, according to the state, shouldn't be sleeping with men fit to be their fathers. It's not for me to judge, but I was glad Philip's whereabouts were known. Of course, all of Philip's details are in the database. I don't know how Rob got access to it. But in the end, it turned out that Phil was not Rob's father. If Catherine was being straight with me, that meant Kyle Simmons had to be the one. The search continued. Seymour Schlump and I had gone to high school together. Seymour went to Dickerson and was getting his law degree when I went to the University of Pennsylvania. Seymour and the law was not a marriage made in heaven. He was not the straightest arrow in the quiver. In fact, he was, to put it mildly, mean-spirited. He was, however, the perfect candidate for our project. Using Nittany Lions alumni news and fraternity web pages, we found Lieutenant Colonel Simmons at Andrews Air Force Base in Maryland. Kyle was a big shot at ROTC in college, and it turns out he made a career out of it. Abby had a cousin in the Pennsylvania National Guard who was able to get Kyle's DNA record. It all checked out. By the end of the week, Catherine was out of the house. Instead of paying the mortgage payments, I simply refinanced the whole thing, removing Catherine's name from all the paperwork. I went back to the house, but the kids wanted to stay in Freckville for the rest of the school year. Rob wanted to stay to be near Shannon. I think I wanted to be near Abby, but there were issues that needed to be resolved. I was amazed at the poor job Catherine's attorney did. It would have been very easy for him to determine that I hadn't quit my job, just taken a vacation. It turned out that he never checked. I was under the impression that he had filled out a divorce form that he had downloaded from the internet. I was still a few months away from a final decision, but I didn't expect any problems. The worst part about me going back to work was that it was a loss of grants for Rob. The good part was that I would be able to pay for tuition or get a loan. Abby worked in an office that paid doctor's fees. It was a 9-to-5 job, 5 days a week. I started spending all my weekends in Freckville. Rob and Shannon got along fine with one small drawback. Shannon spent a lot of time with Darcy and Donna. It was mostly shopping, but Rob wasn't thrilled about sharing her time. Abby and I thought it was funny in a good way. For some reason, Abby and I acted more like friends than ex-lovers. Neither of us seemed ready to take the first step toward intimacy. Seymour flooded the legal system with every piece of paperwork he could think of. He worked on a shotgun approach. He figured that if he brought enough cases against Simmons, 1 or 2 of them might stick around. He also hoped to get at least one partial guilty plea so he could get money from Kyle. I didn't pay him a dime, but he didn't seem to mind. I didn't want anything from the lawsuits, but it would be nice if we could pay for Rob's college. It would make it easier when the girls started school. Things were still the same between Rob and me. The DNA story didn't seem to bother either of us. Rob was just happy that he wasn't Shannon's brother. I was glad I was her father, but I was sorry I wasn't around when she was growing up. She seemed happy with everything. Things were starting to get back to normal. I had the house all sorted out, but I didn't want to live alone. Rob and Shannon had finished school and were both working. Rob would be leaving for state college in 2 months. Shannon was going to start a 2-year program at Reading Area Community College in some sort of medical administration field. Catherine called from Baltimore. The relationship between her and her parents was not going well. She was living with her sister and couldn't afford to get her own place. She had trouble getting a job because of bad references from her last employer. She regretted everything and wished she could turn things around. She hoped I could forgive her. Although forgiveness on my part was out of the question, she was happy to hear that the girls were planning a trip to Baltimore to see her. The conversation ended on a high note. By the end of the summer, my life began to get better. The divorce was final, and there were no conditions attached. Kyle Simmons acknowledged Rob's paternity on the advice of his attorney. Instead of a monetary settlement, it was agreed that Kyle would pay all of Rob's college expenses for 4 years. Kyle also paid Seymour's fees. To make matters worse for Kyle, his wife filed for divorce, which included her right to 49% of Kyle's upcoming pension. Using simple math, she determined that Rob had been conceived just 4 weeks before their wedding. Coupled with several other indiscretions over the years, This proved to be the straw that broke the camel's back. The biggest surprise was Abby's appearance. It was too late for dinner, but it was fine for a bottle of wine. She didn't say anything until we were comfortable. "John, I need a favor." I liked the way she started the conversation because I felt obligated to her and wanted to do something for her. Shannon's REKK classes start in a few weeks, and I'm not thrilled with her traveling, especially through the mountains in the winter. I was wondering if it would be okay if she stayed here with you. Sure. The girls are coming back, and I think they'll all get along just fine. There's just one more problem. We've never been apart before, and I'm hesitant to leave her alone. She won't be alone. I'll be here, and so will the girls. I could tell by the look on her face that I'd said the wrong thing. I'm sorry, Abby. That was probably the wrong answer. I can see that you were expecting something else. Please explain. I swear. John Richel, you are the dumbest person I know. I'm not going to let you off the hook again. I'm going to sit here until you figure it out. Give me more wine. Well, it took me a full 5 seconds to realize what was going on. Before I finished pouring her wine, I was already grinning from ear to ear. Well, it all worked out as it should have. Rob is doing well at Penn State and comes home every chance he gets. Shannon has excellent grades at RACC and will graduate 6 months early. Donna has been accepted to James Madison University in Virginia with a good scholarship. Darcy has not yet decided on a college. Abby, Mrs. Richel, has a nice small medical practice covering 3 counties. She hopes that Shannon will be ready to fill in for her when the baby is born. As the famous English writer says, life goes on. The end! Subscribe to my channel. Thank you!